Well, hello and welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. The season may well have ended, and another one in League 2 it is, but we are here every single week taking you on a trip down memory lane, recording some of the stories from players, past players and past managers. The Mansfield Matters podcast crew are with me as well, although this week we've finally done it, we've finally got rid of Cam. Yay!
Hard work.
Cam is not with us this week, so we've replaced him with a much older and a much, I never thought I'd say this about Cam, uglier model. With Dad Chris, who seems to be trying to get on the camera by putting his thumb in front of it. Don't worry, we'll edit out with the other camera, it's fine. Joining us this week for a trip down memory lane is a player who broke through the Stags YTS scheme in the late 90s and then left just after that horrible playoff final in 2004, and then went on to Barnsley to have an established career over 10 years, and now is the head of the academy at Oakwell and doing very well for himself as well. We'll introduce him in a second, but as always, let's have a little chat to Simon and to Nathan, the Mansfield Matters podcast panellist. Nathan, last week with Ian Bowling, it was sort of the start of when you were starting to go in, but obviously Bobby you would have seen a lot more of and sort of know a little bit more about his style of play, and I know for a fact you've been excited about this one, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I mean, like I said, we spoke before Ian came last week, and it was, like you say, just before, but there's an era when I got involved which is sort of, for me, still the best Mansfield Town team that I've ever seen in my 20 years of sort of watching the Stags, and Bobby, if I was going to put down my top 11, he'll be straight on that list in at right back. So like I say, it was definitely in my area of when I was absolutely loving the Stags. Still am, but different era. and so yeah, I've very much been looking forward to tonight. And
Simon, obviously, what about yourself? Obviously, you would have seen many a right back over the year, but Bobby certainly wasn't.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I'm not that old. No, I think Bobby was one of the best right backs we've had, to be honest. So yeah, I remember him very well, especially against the goal against Hull City. I remember that one.
No, we'll certainly look forward to hearing all about that one as well. And obviously tonight it's a little bit louder than what you watched last week. That's because here at the Capo Lounge, the fabulous Capo Lounge here in Mansfield, they do fantastic stuff for community groups and things like that. They've got a games night on tonight, a board games night. They're expecting about 10 people. They've got about 40, 50, so it's packed to there. Personally, I think it's because we said that Bobby was coming down here tonight, so they all wanted to have a little glimpse at Bobby. Bobby, welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast. Thank you very much for getting involved.
This is
your first time back in Mansfield for quite a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, a number of years in terms of town centre. I've still got a house here, so I was down here 2 weeks ago sorting it out from a tenant in there that's wrecked the place, but first time in the town centre, yeah.
You're trying to say there's a house to rent on the market, which you're trying to get a tenant
I'm selling it now.
I'm sure it's a fantastic place. What are your immediate memories of Mansfield then? Because obviously people will associate you for obviously the 10 years at Barnsley and everything that you did there. Obviously the testimonial you had a couple of years ago was against Mansfield. You made your breakthrough at Mansfield. What are your immediate memories of playing for Mansfield Town Football Club?
Well, my last memory is obviously losing in the playoff final, which is not a great memory, but over my time at Mansfield, fantastic memories. It's where I learnt football. Had a great 2 years here in the YTS scheme, as it was called back then, and I ended up living here for a number of years. I didn't leave here till I was 30 years old, so I met my wife here, had my family here. So just great memories of the town, and obviously great memories of the football club.
Fantastic. You've still sort of got a hand in it by having the house, although you're going to be getting rid of that in the coming weeks or
that'll be gone soon, yeah.
It's always good fun. Obviously, you mentioned the YTS scheme there. You came through that with a good number of players who went on to great things as well. Liam Lawrence, Craig Disley had a decent career, Lee Williamson as well. There were a lot of good players in there. What are your memories of that group? It must have been a lively bunch.
Yes, it was a group full of winners, totally different to today's generation. Obviously being in a modern day academy, the character of players are totally different. Probably society has a great deal to do with that. Our youth team and the youth team that was just below us was, I doubt there'd be a League 2 club that produced so many good players that to go on to play in the Championship and Premier League. If I'd have gone back to 1996, 97, 98, I would never have foreseen so many players going on and having such a long careers. We all played 500, 600, 700 games.
What do you think the secret to that success was then? Because as you mentioned, so many good players who went on to play at the top level. You very rarely get that at academy now. You perhaps get one or two that go on and do relatively well. But what was the secret to that success?
Just the character, the players really, and the individuals. We had Steve Parkin there, who was a very good coach, created great character in us and winning mentality, and obviously then Billy Dearden was the father figure to everyone when he took over and gave everyone a chance and debuts.
What's your memories of Billy then? Because obviously, I think different players, don't they, sort of have different relationships with managers. Ian Bowling, when he was sat in that chair last time around, wasn't so fond of him because obviously he was the manager who made him depart and brought in Kev Pilkington.
Yeah.
But obviously he brought the likes of yourself, Liam, Craig, all of those through. So as you say, almost like a father figure. Yeah,
I think he came in with an emphasis of playing youth and getting rid of some of the older players, which he did. Obviously brought in some older players with Les Robinson, who again became the father figure of the dressing room. But Billy was a great character. I still see him regular now, scouting. It's not changed one bit. It just gave everyone a chance, and as I said, he was a father figure, totally different to Steve Parkin. They both had different strengths and weaknesses, but he was great for us.
And obviously now you're in an academy role, sort of involved with Barnsley's academy. Is a lot of perhaps Dearden's style sort of in the way you go about your business as well? Have you learnt from him on that side of things? Yeah,
in terms of dealing with young individuals, I think today you certainly have to be a father figure instead of Steve Parker, who was more military and autocratic in the way he did things. But it worked for me. It was kind of institutionalised is what we became, and very professional through what Steve taught us, whereas Billy was totally different. He trusted his players.
And obviously, you achieved promotions and things like that. I think you had, in your time, let me just see if I get this right off the top of my head, 2 playoff heartaches, a promotion and a relegation. Is that about right?
Yes. Certainly the relegation. I was injured all season, so didn't really feel part of a relegation in terms as you was as a player. I came back, I think, for the last 10 games, and we ended up winning quite a few of them. The likes of myself and Leo Lawrence missed a large chunk of that season, and a couple of other lads. I think if we'd have been fit, we wouldn't have got relegated that season.
But now, Si and Nathan, you both sort of watched that season a little bit more closely than what I did. I started going every single game the season after that. Perhaps some will say that I jumped on the bandwagon. I would just say I was let out to play. Do you agree with what Bobby said there? If you think, if Bobby himself had been fit, if sort of Liam hadn't been injured, do you think we might have stood more of a fighting chance?
I think so, yeah. I mean, at the time in our league, I don't think there was a better right back and a better winger than Bobby and Liam. You seem to complement each other on the pitch, where Liam would get the ball and you'd bomb on like for the ball down the wing. You don't see that now. It's always pass forward and then like the right back stay back, and we've never really emulated like the right wing and the right back since then, to be honest.
I think the one thing I remember a lot about that season is the one my dad always says as well about that relegation season is the character of the players. I mean, you've already mentioned about the character, and the thing is, I think if we had everybody fit, we had those players in that team who wanted to play for the shirt. And the reason why, even though we got relegated, it didn't feel like it's such a bad season, because a lot of the games we came off and the players got a standing ovation because you knew that they put 100% into it. So you just feel that if we had that little bit of luck with injuries and things like that, so the likes of Bobby and Liam and a couple of others, if they were fit, so we added that quality to that fight that we already had. I really do believe that we would have stayed up that season, but I think like Bob's already said, the character in the camp anyway, because of those young players coming through, which I hope to see with Stags now and in the future. I think that sticks a lot in the Stags fans' memories.
I think we sort of on that part, I don't know how much you sort of keep an eye on things at the One Call Stadium, Bobby, nowadays, but John Dempster, an ex-defender sort of like yourself, he's now the academy manager. We've won, or the under-18s manager, whichever you want to call it, 3 league titles in consecutive seasons. Seems to be going well. We do seem like we're getting that bond, but how important is it that a first-team manager worked closely with the youth team? Because you mentioned Billy Dearden a lot, and that he was very keen to sort of lead the youngsters, whereas other managers perhaps aren't so. So how much work has David Flitcroft got to do to perhaps sort of see, you know, a very similar story to back when you were in the youth team, to develop sort of homegrown players?
It depends what the remit is of the club and what model they use. At Barnsley we use that. Very successful academy, promoting the youth. The likes of John Stones came through and now England internationals. So it's vastly important. As you've just said there, Mansfield have won the league I think last 3 years. So it tells you they've got good players, but it's no good at winning the league if none of these lads are getting in the first team and getting a chance and even training with them. My understanding is that David Flitcroft just started, which I know he already did it at Barnsley, we started introducing some of these young lads into training and getting them in that environment, and then ultimately getting them on the first team pitch.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting tonight. We'll obviously talk a little bit more about your relationship with David and your previous working history and get a player's perspective of that sort of later on in the show. But it's interesting to see that already we've seen from the outside he's started bringing one or two into the training fold and that sort of thing. And you mentioned that he's done it at previous clubs, so there is a bit of something there, and just hearing that made me think, you know, we might be onto something in the future with that.
Yeah, I think it's good that he's getting players in through the youth team, because I always think that it means more to the younger ones to put on the shirt. I mean, Bobby's come from a youth team and things like that, and I assume that when you put the shirt on, you know, it meant something to be in the first team for you, you know, because you're actually playing for the club that's brought you on, sort of thing. So it's good that to get youngsters in from around Mansfield and get them into the first team, because it means more than getting somebody in from Northampton and, you know, they're just here just to play for Mansfield, whereas it means more to a young lad at 18 to score a goal for Mansfield and get involved.
It's always great to have the homegrown talent coming through as well. Let's take you back, Bobby, to those early days. You've just sort of come through the YTS. We're going to ask you about pre-season and trainer sizes later on. All will become clear, don't worry, looking a bit panicked. These are laughing because they know what's coming. Thank you, Ian Bowling, for this one. What happened then? Why did you make the transition from the youth team to the first team? What can you remember about that, the meetings and the transition?
Well, it wasn't a planned transition, put it that way. I struggled when I first came in terms of fitness. I'd not been in an academy system, I'd been Sunday league football really. So coming straight into that environment, and the intensity of training was a wake-up call for me. Probably took me 3 or 4 months to get really into it. But I was straight into the first team then, in terms of playing. I was still struggling with fitness, but my ability was probably enhanced to my peers at the time, and basically got chucked in at the deep end because everyone was injured. So instead of going out to get loans, they put me in the game. I think it was Notts Forest was I forget what cup it was called back then. And I think we got beat 5-2. Me and Nicky Weaver played. He ended up getting a move after that game. He played that well, and that was my debut really in the first team against 2 international forwards. With Pierre Van Hooijdonk and Brian Roy played up front, so it was a great experience.
When you saw the team sheet, did you have a little look down and think, oh, here we go?
Well, Steve Parkin played the reserves as such, and then a couple of youngsters, he expected Forest to play their reserves, they played their full team.
Was there a few choice words from Steve Parkin when he saw what they put out?
Not really, no. Just go and enjoy it. We give a good account of ourselves. I think we lost 5-2 in the end, something like that. But we gave a good account of ourselves against such an international star-studded team.
You mentioned about sort of going down that route of when you come through, you might play 1 or 2 games, then go out on loan to get a bit more experience. But as you mentioned, it was the deep end. What would you have preferred? Would you have preferred a month out on loan to sort of find your feet, or did you prefer swimming in the deep end?
It didn't happen back then. That kind of method, you call it succession planning now to do with kids. It didn't happen back then. You never went out on loan. You just played in the first team, or you played in the reserves. Reserve football was probably the way you got experience. You were playing on a Tuesday night under the floodlights, playing with senior players. Probably mixed between 4 or 5 youth team players, but now obviously they send you out on loan to non-league, or at our level we'd send them to League 2. There wasn't that planning back then. We were just chucked straight in.
Which sort of players did you sort of look to for a little bit of help in match situations to sort of talk you through it and sort of make you feel a little bit more comfortable?
Well, I had Stuart Watkins at the time, who became the manager, and I'm still really close to now. And then Les Robinson took that role as a senior player, and these were real solid pros. You don't have them anymore. There's not that kind of player anymore that will take his time out to mentor the young players. So I was fortunate having Les Robinson and Stuart Watkins as mentors.
And you even linked back up with Stuart, didn't you, a year or so ago when you went over to India? Tell us about how that sort of came about. Obviously you'd hung the boots up at Barnsley and those days were done. What happened?
Well, I turned down that move a couple of months before. It was the last thing I was going to do was go to India and leave the family. And then it came up again through a link to get the manager's job, which I put Stuart forward. He got the job and then asked me to go out as an assistant manager. Again, I wasn't really looking to go. I went to Bradford. I was ready to sign for them. They were messing about. They were struggling for money at the time and not signing players. So I ended up just taking the bold move, really, for the experience more than anything. I was coming to the end of my career. There was a chance to coach, a chance to sample something different. It was only 6 months with knowing I could get back every 6 weeks. So that's how it came about.
Fantastic. And what was that like then, going over there and sort of that experience? Are you glad you did it? Or did
brilliant. Yeah, it was a real culture shock going over. Obviously, seeing the amount of poverty that was over there, the travelling that occurred going from game to game, and just it was like starting back at Mansfield, if I'm honest. Training on rubbish pitches when we first got to Mansfield, having to put out kit ourselves, do everything ourselves. It took me back to when I was 15, 16. So it's gone back to how I was with Stu, and we enjoyed it. It was a great 6 months. It was tough work. It was hot, being away from home. But I really enjoyed it. I won't change it now.
And you got obviously a young family as well. So is that a big part of sort of coming back when you did and sort of settling down and going down the academy route? Yeah,
when I came back, I could have continued playing at League 2 level. I had a few offers to go and conference, but I was really close to the old owner, who sadly just passed away at Barnsley, and he asked me to come back. He didn't tell me which role he wanted at the time. He just asked me to come back, so I said yeah, great. Took about 2 months really to come up with a role. The manager was under pressure at the time at Barnsley, and initially just wanted me to come and help whoever was going to take over. It was Paul Hackingbottom at the time, would have took over if the manager would have left. Fortunately for the club, Lee Johnson went on 110 on the bounce and got his move, who was another great guy, so I was really pleased for him. That's how it came about. I thought, do I prolong the career just for a year or start this side of the white line, as they say, and I took that and it's worked out.
Now, is your job title now academy manager or Bookie's favourite for the manager's job every time there's a managerial change? You seem to be up there every time.
Yeah, it always happens. Even now, I think I get messages now. I had loads today, my phone's not stopped. Are you going to take the job? Well, I've never even applied or even wanted the job, and they've not offered it. It has been offered me in the past by Patrick. It was more on an interim basis to start with, but I certainly ain't in for it this time, no. I don't know where the bookies get it from. I don't know how it works. Probably because of my history at the club and being academy manager, people just chuck your name out there.
2 and 2 together and often get about 5 or 6, don't they, Nath? It's always an interesting one, that one. From your perspective, Nath, obviously we talked to Bobby, and obviously 2 playoff heartaches, a promotion and a relegation. Talk about a roller coaster. What are your sort of key memories of Bobby? Do you think he maybe should have took the ball off Liam Lawrence when he tried to chip it at Cardiff and got on in the shootout?
Never mind, take it. Someone just at least have a word in his ear and say don't do anything stupid. But
did anyone have a word with him after that?
No, not really.
He's still a legend.
He is, yeah.
Actually, he scored 22 goals that season.
Yeah, he did.
I've got a feeling it was about 14 penalties and he'd not missed one.
Yeah.
It was a surprise he did it. I know, speaking to him after, he was going to go in the corner and the keeper had gone early. So he changed his mind last second, and it was an instinctive thing.
Never
obviously
change your
backfired.
Mind. Never change your mind. Obviously, look back at those shootouts. 5-4 victory against Northampton, and the loss at Cardiff against Huddersfield. Were you ever sort of on Curl's list to take one, or were you?
If I'm honest, I can't remember. I went on the 5. I think I was always on the 6th one, the first one, if it went to that stage. We should have won the game in 90 minutes or 120, what it was. I think we scored that day.
Didn't the ball cross the line?
Never crossed the line. I watched it back earlier. It didn't cross the line. Trust me.
I mean, we should, as I said, we should have won. It was a strange game going into it. I'd already signed for Barnsley before I played that game. Liam had already signed for Sunderland before he played that game. So he was desperate to leave, you know, taking the club up again. Junior Mendes had already signed for Huddersfield before, which I wasn't happy about because obviously we were playing against them and we're getting beat on penalties. And he come off injured.
Injured or?
Well, he wasn't injured, no.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. He was all right on the bus on the way home. So perhaps shouldn't have played in that game. But we still should have won the game.
How difficult was that situation for Keith Curl then as manager? Because he would have known that, you know, Liam would go to Stoke, you would go to Barnsley, and especially the Mendes situation with going to Huddersfield and having signed before the game.
Yeah.
How much of a difficult situation did that put him in as a manager, in your opinion?
Well, he wouldn't have known about it.
You don't think he would?
No. It was his fault. The reality is none of us wanted to play for him. I was one of them. I didn't want to stay while he was manager. So we were already decided to leave. It offered us all less money, even if we got promoted. So the time was right to leave. I'd played nearly 200 games. I needed to progress in my career. I'd already turned down 2 or 3. Well, the club had turned down 2 and 3 offers for me from high division clubs, and they thought they could get money for me, not realising I was actually 24 when my contract went out. So I was a free. So they made a host of mistakes with us lot.
And I think if you look back at that as well, I think that's one of the sort of nails that were in Haslam's coffin as well. Because what were your sort of thoughts when? I mean, I never knew that Bobby and Liam and Junior had signed for the club before that final, because you never realise, you always think it's after.
I didn't know that Bobby and Liam had signed for Sunderland and Barnsley. I knew that Junior had signed for Huddersfield, and that was kind of a bit of a thing in the crowd at the time. You always seem to think, well, is Junior actually going to perform? Because it don't matter to him, because if Huddersfield win,
well, it benefited him more, wouldn't it? That's a terrible thing. I mean, like I say, if the manager wasn't aware, then that's obviously a problem. But if he was aware, he should not have even been in that squad.
No, he shouldn't. No, I agree.
Nath, me and you often talk very positively and highly about Keith Curl because
I was just about to say, can I just take back my comments from the podcast a few weeks ago where I said I want him as manager? I've changed my mind. Maybe not anymore.
What does go through your mind when you hear stories like that about, less money for key players who've come through the system, the club not realising that they're going to lose out on money and potential windfalls for them? Imagine how different things could have been if we would have commanded a fee for the likes of Bobby, the likes of Liam.
Yeah, but then, to be honest, in them days, it probably just got into Keith Haslam's pocket, so it probably wouldn't have really mattered at the end of the day. We wouldn't have profited from it, would we, really? So, in some ways, I think the club took its course the way it needed to just to get rid of the chairman, because I don't think, even if we went up that season, I don't think we'd have stayed up there much longer, and we'd have probably just come back down anyway. And I think what happened in the end happened because we needed, in a way, for our sake, because we probably wouldn't have a club now. So you can look at it in that way. So, but if you look at running a football club, it's obviously, you'd think we'd get those sort of things done right, wouldn't you? So we benefit from the likes of bringing these quality players through when they do move on. So it's a tough one.
And obviously, the Haslam situation didn't make it any easier. Ian Boldham is sat in that chair last week and telling us the story about when the senior players conned him in the car park, dragged him into the dressing room over things not getting paid and things like that. Did it go down a similar route when you were sort of coming into the first team in those seasons? Was he still withdrawing the wages, or was things things settle a bit?
Yeah, no, there was. But as a kid, you don't even think of stuff like that because you're not paying mortgages when you're in digs. So these things didn't affect me or the other lads coming through. It was more the senior players. You always know that things were happening behind the scenes with the senior players. But obviously, Keith came in. Did he do a good job? I thought he got lucky that he fell on good people that recruited in good young players that went on and did really well for the club, got promoted. That year we got promoted. If they'd invested some money, I think would have actually kicked on. And they may have established themselves as a League One and potentially getting into. They had a team there, a core young team that could have got in the Championship.
Yeah, let's touch upon that promotion winning season a little bit more. Obviously, started off with Billy Dearden in charge and then left for Notts County.
Yeah.
What was the dressing room like when Billy left? Because it's a very similar situation to ours this year in terms of Steve Evans leaving for Peterborough and then another manager coming in, although we brought him from outside rather than recruiting from within, which we all said we should have done. But what's it like as a player when a manager who comes in and has built a squad then decides to leave for a rival?
Well, with Billy, most of us cried because we absolutely loved him. As I said, he was a father figure. We didn't see anything. I think we played Leicester. I'm sure it was Leicester we lost it. Yeah. And he told us the day after, and we were flying out to Portugal on the Monday. And he told us after the game, it came as a real shock. I mean, Stuart taking over out because obviously he'd been the youth team manager to a lot of players, so he was just taking us forward. So it was a real shock. Wherever they went, it didn't really matter to me and the players. We were just gutted that we were losing someone that we would run through a brick wall for. I ain't so sure the modern day Mansfield players would cry when Steve Evans left. They're probably joyful.
I wonder why. Have you ever come across Steve Evans in your career?
I've played against his teams probably once or twice in pre-season. Obviously I know what he's like. I've got a lot of mates that have played for him, so I've heard a lot of stories about him and the way he works, but one thing you can't argue, he gets teams promoted.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, I have to ask because I think there'll be a lot of people screaming at me if I don't ask the question. Without naming names, can you give us a bit of an insight into what he was like as a manager from what other people within the game have said? From who's
just very intense from what I'm told, and obviously you see him on the sideline, and that's probably how he is within the dressing room with the players. One of my best friends in football played for him, and though they got promoted twice underneath him, I know they weren't very keen on him. Being correct there, I don't want to say too much on him, but the one thing you can't deny is he gets teams promoted, and I can understand why managers go and appoint him if they want a quick fix in terms of getting teams promoted, which he does, and you can't argue with that. He does spend a lot of money and getting teams promoted, but at the end of the day he gets them promoted.
Yeah, he certainly does. I mean, I think we'd have all, when he came in, we was a little bit like, his character's got a little bit of history to it, but we've all said exactly the same as Bobby, didn't we? You know, he's had promotions and we'd have killed for that. What do you go on, Nathan?
I was going to say, let's not pretend as well, when he was here, 95% of the fan base did actually love him, because when he's on your team and he's getting them playing the way you want them to and showing his passion, then you do love him. But I think the way he abandoned us the way he did when we were so close, he gave us that hope when we were so close to actually getting the promotion. I think that's the bit of the character that people always questioned about him, and the fact that he just was so easy just to get up and leave like that and leave us in a mess that he did. I think that's the problem, and that's where the opposite fans tried to warn us, really, didn't they? And I think that's just Steve Evans for you, isn't it? It's a bit selfish character in that sense, but when he's on your team you sort of love him. It's a difficult one.
Bobby, you played under 4 managers at the club, if I've done my maths right. It's a good job, Cam.
So I can remember.
Yeah, I'll go backwards. Curl, Watkis did, and then it would have been King,
Steve Parkin, and Andy King.
Yeah. Fantastic. So obviously, I think we can pretty much guess who you would say is the one you didn't get on with the most in terms of Keith Curl, but he did get us up there and towards the playoffs. So what sort of, it must have started off all right. What went wrong?
It started off terrible. It actually finished
relegation, yeah.
Well, no, it started off terrible with his relationship with players, and I think because of that start, it was very hard to then get that relationship back with him, because trust is a big thing in football, and the players didn't trust him initially. And then it was very difficult to get that trust back. But it was still a good team. The still core was there that got promoted the 2 seasons before. Still young lads coming through together. So we were used to each other by then. But Keith came in and wanted to throw the whip at it. You know, for example, when he first came in, he said if anyone wants to come and leave, he was getting the riot out, come and see me. Well, we all went straight to him, which backfired on him. And then he had
that was a sort of a bit of a move to say, I'm the boss now, you know, you've had your mate for a couple of years,
the football as I do now, yeah. But when you're a kid, you don't understand that. You think it's personal.
Yeah.
And well, fine, then we'll leave, because we had lots of clubs after us. And then obviously we got relegated, and he had to change his tack the second year, which he did, to be fair to him. But by then, I think people have made their minds up on him. So yeah, that's how the relationship was with him.
Does that come from being a rookie manager and sort of perhaps not knowing how to approach it, or do you just think that's his general character? Because obviously he's gone on from there.
He's changed. I'm sure he's changed over the years, and he's just trying different things. He would have been probably spoken to like that by his managers, but a generation's changed. I can't speak to the kids how we used to be spoken to. You do have to change to the generations that you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's certainly an important thing, especially at your level, when in terms of managing academies and things like that.
Yeah.
What falls under your job role? And are you directly involved with a team, or are you involved in
I'm not directly involved. No, I don't coach an actual team, so I just oversee all the departments of the academy, from sports science, recruitment, the analytical stuff, all the way through to 9s, all the way to 23s.
Do you ever look back and think, if there'd have been this much sort of emphasis on things like sports science and analytics and things like that, back when you were a youth team, you might have gone on to even played a little bit more higher than what you did? I mean, you achieved a fantastic level anyway, but everyone's dream is to push on a little bit higher, isn't it?
Yeah, possibly on the sports science, definitely. If I'd have been a little bit fitter, a bit more professional as a younger age, I may have gone higher quicker. But the analytical, no. Some of the stuff I don't agree with anymore, but that we have to do. I don't think we produce characters in players anymore, because you can get chucked in front of the Premier League straight away on bullying allegations when you're telling someone just they've got to do the job and the standards required. So you have to be very careful now with safeguarding all sorts of different issues. Whereas when I played, I think you see more men, more characters. The characters missing out of football now.
Well, you mentioned characters, so I think it's probably an apt time to ask about that. I mean, you look back at that squad, 03, 04, you look back at some of the ones even before that, 01, 02, when we achieved promotion, that sort of thing. Who were the live wires in the dressing room then? Who would always have a cheeky game or a cheeky sort of prank to play? Who were the ones to watch out for?
Liam Lawrence he was the prankster probably of the dressing room. Junior Mendes, and probably Les Robinson. Les Robinson was a sneaky one, because you'd never guess he would do half his stuff, and he was mainly the one that was setting all the pranks. Wayne Corden was a great character. I would say everyone, if I'm being honest, in the dressing room would be up to something. Not so much on the jokes, it would be stuff that you couldn't get away with now. DP and all that, all the old tales. People don't do anything like that, even cutting up clothes. And Liam Lawrence brought a convertible, and we ended up chucking mud in his car. You wouldn't get away with stuff like that now, but that was just a regular thing back then.
What's the worst one you've had happen to you, and then did you ever find out who it was, and what were the consequences?
No, I never found out, no.
Never found out? I'm still looking.
Cars were trashed, don't know. And clothes cut up. Again, I've been hammered for my clothes all through career, so they always used to get cut up. And never found out who it was, if I'm being honest.
If it helps, we have got Les. He's going to be doing an interview as well, so if it helps, we'll question him and find out if he's done any of it.
Yeah, well, he will have, but he won't tell you, Les.
Maybe if we get him a few drinks from the bar here at the Capo Lounge, you never know, he might open up a little bit. Obviously, just before we take a quick break, you did return to the One Call Stadium a couple of seasons back. I interviewed you at Pitchside, I remember doing that Restay's testimonial.
Yeah.
What was it like coming back to Mansfield and playing on that pitch again? Because I might be wrong, and I probably will be, and I'm sure somebody will correct me, but I'm 99.9% sure that you never actually played against Mansfield after you left in a competitive fixture.
No, never.
See, I knew I was right. We'll end it there.
No, never. I mean, that was obviously part of, unfortunately, Mansfield never been able to get promoted again, and I was fortunate to get promoted, I think, after 2 years at Barnsley, and stayed there in the Championship then 10 years after. So no, never. So really enjoyed going back. I still love going back now when I watch games. So I have been to quite a few games to watch players. I've been to scouts of Mansfield players for Barnsley's first team, so in the last 2 years. So I do go to games regular, but playing on the pitch, it was the first time I've been back. It was sad because we never got a chance to say bye, really, a lot of the lads, and we'd had a great time there for 8 years at the football club, nearly 200 games, same as Liam and Leroy and Diz and your likes of Chrissy Greenacre. So it was sad not being able to say bye. That's why I had my testimonial against Mansfield. So
yeah, I was going to ask. I was going to ask that. Obviously, it was a pre-season friendly a couple of pre-seasons ago. You obviously played, and I think you ended up scoring the winner from the penalty spot in front of the Stakes fans. You had a great reception there from both sets of supporters, as you'd expect as well. But is that the one lingering regret that you could never? There was never really a platform to say anything anyway, because Twitter and things like that and Facebook weren't really around in 04. Was that a lingering regret that you never got to explain why you left and sort of say your goodbyes to a club which really, is etched on your heart like Barnsley is? Yeah,
absolutely. When you're there so long, you do. I think it's probably one of the best Mansfield teams in probably history. The one that got promoted with so many young kids coming through the system as well. I don't think that'll ever be done again. So many youth team players playing in a promotion team. So yeah, it was sad for all of us to leave and not say goodbye to people and explain why we'd left.
And we'll talk a little bit more about your testimonial and some of the other players that you played in and things like that, and a little bit about your career after Mansfield, and talk about Barnsley, because this man here is not just a capable right back who played centre back quite a few times as well. Where did you prefer, just quickly, right back or centre back?
A centre back.
Preferred centre back?
Yeah, I think if I'd have been 6'1", 6'2", I probably played in the Premier League. That's what managers told me. It was just height that stopped me progressing into the higher leagues. Certainly, I didn't have the pace, the top end pace to play in the Premier League at right back, but centre half, and I got away with it.
I think we were probably both all a bit surprised by that, because when, in terms of Bobby's Mansfield time, him and Liam were a sort of an unstoppable force down the right hand side, weren't they, mate?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was expecting you to say right back there, but I guess it's.
Yeah, I enjoy defending, so even though I was able to I was at Barnsley my first year, I could bomb on, but when you get in the Championship and you're playing against good teams and good players, we were on the back foot a lot, so I had to defend.
Different pace.
Yeah, I had to defend a hell of a lot in the Championship. So.
Well, not only did you defend, you also had a very famous stint, one game between the sticks. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. If you've not seen it, go onto YouTube because it's fantastic. I watched it earlier on, and I have to say I thought I was watching a pro goalkeeper, so we'll talk more about that a little bit more. We'll also talk about your relationship with David Flitcroft, the current Mansfield manager, and of course your ex-boss and ex-assistant boss at Barnsley as well. We'll talk about the future and lots more to come as well. But this is the Mansfield Matters podcast, a trip down memory lane. All this close season we are obviously doing this for the Alzheimer's Society, raising money for people who sadly live their life with dementia. One such person being Mansfield Town legend Kevin Bird. Let's have a look how your donations can help.
When I found out I had dementia, it was quite a bit of a shock, because I expected it to be something that they could fix. There is a big stigma. I think there's a fear of, how do I talk to that person? But I'm still me. I can still hold a conversation. I can still recognise people. And even when I can't, I still want to be talked to the same. Alzheimer's Society have helped me massively. I went on a Live Well with Dementia course with them, and we got some really good points from Alzheimer's Society about how we can really live well. And we had such a good laugh, because you can laugh about what you've got. You have to laugh about it. What's the point of being miserable? When we decided to set up the steering group, we wanted to do it because 2 of the members had lost their mums with dementia, and there was no support for them. So we decided that we'd make Longridge dementia friendly. People in Longridge are really friendly. So they're friendly to start with, but to make them dementia friendly would help even more. So if they maybe came across somebody in the street that's looking a bit lost, or somebody that doesn't know how to use a cash machine, they're really struggling, then to give them a bit more time, to be a bit more patient, and to understand that not everybody can do everything at top speed. My daughter Joanne has been a really good support to me. I don't know what I'd have done without her.
When my mum got diagnosed with dementia, I'd started getting more involved with the Alzheimer's Society. I decided on my own to go become a dementia friend, and then I went on to become a dementia champion. And I know my dad struggled and he had dementia. And there's loads of other people in Longridge with dementia. It should be friendly for people living with dementia in Longridge and everywhere else.
And if you want to donate to the Alzheimer's Society and support our cause, a trip down memory lane, all the links that you need are in the description. Fantastic cause, and we can't wait to have that night at the end of the series when we try and reunite the champions of 2012-13. All the money raised on the night will go towards the Alzheimer's Society. If you want more details on them, check the links in the descriptions. Well, it's part 2, which means only one thing. It's probably the one thing which Bobby's been looking towards the door to see if he can make a quick exit at. It's time for the quiz. Now, Bobby, the Mansfield Mats podcast has been going for about a season or so now. You were asking about it during the break and trying to find out a little bit more about whatever it is we do. I don't know what it is. One thing which these guys hate is the quiz segment, and
make it up as we go along.
Yeah, we make it up as we go along. Basically, what we've got is a quiz which is called "It's All About You." So we've got 10 questions, all about your career, mainly from your time at Stags. But there's a couple of curveballs from Barnsley thrown in there as well.
I can answer them
for good measure. It's up against the clock. The time will start after I've finished asking the first question.
My memory's not good.
He's getting his excuses in early, isn't he? That's what we like to see. You can pass, but that will add 10 seconds to your time. An incorrect answer will add just 5. So you might as well have a stab at it, even if you're wrong, because obviously it's all about the time. The person with the most correct answers in the quickest time at the end of the season will get a trophy, because you're all going to be invited to our end of series thing when we back at the One Call Stadium, Touchwood. So it'd be nice to get you back there. Ian Bowling did it, including penalties, in 1 minute 39.
Right, okay.
So there's the bar. Do you think you can get there or not?
Hopefully, I can't lose to him.
You can't lose to him. Fighting talk already 2 episodes in, and we've got a competition on our hands.
Like it.
A reminder that the time will start after I've asked the first question. That's more for Simon's benefit, because while we're entrusting him to do the timing, I don't know.
Neither do I.
Well, there you go. Bobby, are you ready to take a trip down memory lane?
Yes.
Okay. Bobby, whilst you were much loved for helping keep the goals out, you did score 3. Who was the first against in October 1999, 7 minutes after coming on as a substitute? Start the clock.
Hartlepool.
You played your last game in the Amber and Blue in the 2004 playoff final, but which of your teammates was the only one to score during the shootout defeat?
Neil Mackenzie.
In the 2001-2002 promotion winning season, the Stags beat Huddersfield and which other team by 4-0?
Carlisle.
Under how many managers did you serve at the club?
5.
Against which side did you make your debut?
Chester.
You were one of several YTS graduates who made their break into the senior side, but between yourself and Liam Lawrence, who made more senior appearances for the club, you or Liam?
Me.
Did you say you or Liam?
Yes, me. Myself, yes.
Standing tortured. Standing tortured is an anagram of which of your former teammates and fellow defenders who made 34 appearances during the 2001-2002 promotion winning season? Standing tortured.
Adam Barrett.
A testimonial was held for you in July 2015 at Oakwell as Barnsley welcomed the Stags in a pre-season friendly. What was the final score?
2-1.
For Barnsley, you once had to play in goal after who was sent off?
Ben Elmwick.
Your final competitive appearance at Field Mill saw the Stags lose 3-1 in the playoff semi-final, but who scored the Stags goal to level the tie on aggregate?
Wayne Corn.
Stop the clock. How do you think you did?
Probably got 3 or 4 wrong, I think.
That's been alright.
3, 4, 5. What do you reckon, Nath?
I reckon it's done alright. I reckon it's beat Ian.
You think?
Give me answers on some of them. The defender one's done me.
The defender one's done you. The anagram one always will, because that's, yeah.
I hate them.
Yeah, Nathan hates them. I can tell you, Bobby, that you scored 6 correct answers in a time of 1 minute 29.
Oh no.
Ian, however, got 7 correct. But it all depends on, obviously he's ahead of you. But if you've done it in a quicker time, who knows? So let's add up these penalties then. 5, 10, 15, 20. So that is 1 minute 49 seconds. Unfortunately, it's a slower time than Ian. Let's run through those incorrect answers then. The team that you beat 4-0 was Mansfield in the team. That could have been one of any. That's the curveball, isn't it? Horrible question, that one. Standing tortured was Stuart Reddington. That was a hard one. When I was writing that question, I did.
I forgot I played with him.
Yeah, I forgot all about him. You remember him now. And the testimonial 4-3.
Right.
You scored the winning penalty in front of the Stakes fans.
2-1, 4-3.
Same thing. It was 1 goal in it. That's all it was. And the player to score in the playoff semi-final, you said Wayne Corden. It was Tom Curtis.
Tom Curtis.
Who hardly popped up with any goals, did he? So 1 in a million. But a comfortable. I think that's a relatively decent score. But you were wanting to beat Ian Bowling there, weren't you?
What did he get? 139, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, 139. 7 correct in 139. So second in the leaderboard, but there's still plenty more to go with that one, including obviously Les Robinson, a former teammate of yours as well. So there'll be some in there. You ever play with Mickey Boulding?
Yes, I did. Yeah, still see Mickey, still speak to him regularly. Yeah.
So Mickey will be next week's guest on the show. Although
tell him he's beat me if he has.
We won't be here at the Capo Lounge next week. We're actually going around to Mickey's house. So anything we should sort of look out for at Mickey's? What's Shez Bowling like?
The biggest house in Sheffield.
But just look for the biggest house in Sheffield. Don't need a sat now.
It is the biggest house in Sheffield.
Oh dear. We asked this question to Ian Bowling last week, and this is how we got the story about the size 12 trainers. We'll ask about that in a second.
10, size 10.
Size
always
10.
say 12.
We'll always go for that. But obviously, other than having the biggest house in Sheffield, what can you tell us about your memories of Mickey Bowling then? Is there anything we should sort of throw at him as a curveball, which sort of could bring up some entertaining stories?
The curveball for him. Trying to think now.
He seems like a very sort of down-to-earth, straight-laced guy, Mickey.
He is, yes. Obviously came from his tennis. He used to always eat a blueberry muffin after training. Ask him that. No, sorry, it was double chocolate actually, muffin.
Could I say double? Yeah, it's
We know what gift to take anyway.
Always.
That's it. Always had a double chocolate muffin.
Remember what I used to eat after every training session.
Fantastic.
Well, we won't be able to do that these days either, a double chocolate muffin. It's not quite what your sports scientists would say, really. I don't recommend that. I know they don't let us do that anyway.
No, it's an interesting one. I mean, you obviously came through sort of late 90s, early noughties, and then obviously finished your playing career a couple of seasons ago. Yeah. How did football change? Because I imagine Ian Bowling was talking about this last week. He was always talking about washing your own kit, bringing your own meals, that sort of thing. How's football changed in that landscape?
It's far more professional now. You're really giving no excuses to anyone because they've got everything on a plate, where I think it's probably had a detrimental effect to making footballers. There's a lot of players, certainly at the top academies, they'll earn a lot more money than players that have played 600 games. So if we get a player from Manchester City, for instance, that you're interested in signing, who's not kicked a ball with the first team, he may be on £20,000 already.
That's scary, isn't it?
You have no chance of getting them. They're out of our budget at a club like Barnsley. And would you want to sign them? Probably not, because they don't have that hunger. And that fight, ultimately, they don't need to. From a young age, they've had a lot of money. No success, but success in their eyes. Parents are very hard to deal with nowadays.
They're always demanding extra 5k for little Johnny shoelaces.
They're just very demanding, yeah. My parents, they wouldn't demand out. You get clipped round here if you didn't work hard. But now, they clip the coach round here if you don't play their kid. So the generations have changed. I'd like to see it go back to cleaning their old balls, cleaning their old kit, even at our level. Everything's done for them.
You were going to say, Simon?
I was going to say, is it easier to sign somebody from a lower league than somebody from...
Our remit at Barnsley is that they recruit under 25, 24 and usually from the lower leagues. So they're hungry, lads you can want to develop first and foremost, and move on. You found they're certainly easier to coach and develop, and obviously it makes money for the club getting them cheap, develop them, selling them on. It's wrong terminology, so I have no time for young modern pros, but a lot of them I haven't got time for.
Let's talk about one young pro who was at Barnsley who you'll know very well and who Stags fans will know very well. A certain Randy Wands, or as everyone else knows him, Danny Rose. It's the anagram thing. I always throw in. That was one of the funniest anagrams we had. What was Danny like as a kid? Because he comes across as one of the most genuine, down-to-earth, hard-working strikers who just wants to succeed and score goals. What was he like to play with, and when he was sort of developing at Barnsley?
Fantastic attitude. His generation, their youth team was probably the best at Barnsley in the last probably 20 years. So John Stones and Jordan Clark, who's just got promoted at Accrington, and a couple of others that are playing League 2 level. They just had good attitudes, which is again missing now. They had good mentors as well. I'm sure if you ask Danny, he would tell you about myself and other senior pros that we were very harsh on perhaps how we were treated, but then we'd give them an arm around the shoulder and then love them after. But during training they knew they had to work hard. If we was in the gym, everything they did had to be done properly, otherwise we'd be on them. You don't really get that pro anymore, so the young lads get away with murder now, but Danny Rose and his generation didn't get away with anything. We wouldn't allow them to.
And you obviously would have played with him perhaps more in training than in a competitive match, which meant you'd have probably often come up against him. What was he like?
Diving?
Is he still diving?
Yeah.
Still goes diving. Still has a cheeky one.
He's the best player I've seen dive, even in training, which used to really wind me up, I've got to admit, as a defender. But he was great at getting penalties. I did play quite a few competitive games with him, so he was very good around the box, getting your free kicks. He was a great finisher, and great in the air. He certainly should be a League One player. Whether he was ever going to kick on and be in a championship, still young lad, he still may do it.
24, isn't he? He's only 23, 24. He's still a young lad as well, so lots to develop.
Great. He's just a great kid from Barnsley. As I say, there's another one I still speak to regularly on the phone, via text, etc. Just a really good kid.
Fantastic.
Can you make sure he doesn't leave? I mean, he's our top goal scorer, and I'm the one I want him here next season.
Well, Flicker obviously took him from Barnsley to Bury and did well, sold him. I'm not sure if he'll do the same kind of thing.
The only worrying thing is yet to score under him. His dry spell a little bit.
Not many players out.
Well, that's it. We've not got a home win under him yet either. We'll talk about him a little bit more.
Not one at home yet.
Not one at home yet. No, which is a concern, which I'm sure we'll touch upon a little bit more in a little while. But I wanted to stay on that theme of the players at the club that you've played with and those you've come through. We've talked about one of the good. Let's talk about one of the other side of that coin, because we were talking quite openly and quite honestly about the differences between youth team players in your day when they had to clean boots, they had to sort of work for it and find the way in, and then we talk about players who come in with the money. And it's no secret that Jacob Mellis, who was obviously at Barnsley for a while as well, went on with the £1 million move to Chelsea and sort of got that monetary side to it. What was he like in your eyes? Because I think he splits opinion very much from Mansfield.
Well, I think the foundational years of his career, which would be from 16 to probably 22, he was left to probably rot at Chelsea, which he'll openly admit. Left to their own devices. So he missed a lot of football, a lot of good grounding.
While still picking up a very heavy paycheck, I can imagine.
On his day, Jacob could be a real top player. Certainly in the Championship, he had some games, even at that level, against good teams where when he turned up, he was as good as anything. Unfortunately for Jacob, he just couldn't do it on a regular basis. His diet was poor. His fitness was poor when he was at Barnsley. I'm not sure what he's like now. I know he had a lot of problems off the field as well at the time. So it's a real shame, because he's a player that should be in the Championship, lower ends of the Premier League, but his dedication is not there. It wasn't there when I played with him. It's obviously still not there because he's playing at League 2 level. It's a waste of talent, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we can all agree with and see. I mean, Nath, we saw him have his good days and show that class which Bobby alluded to, but then you see the 3-4 games where he just doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's been the absolute most frustrating factor about him, and that's exactly why he's probably split the Mansfield fans, of who rate him and who don't, because like you say, when he does show up on that day and on that game where he plays out of his skin, he looks like an absolute really quality addition, but then it's no good, especially at our level, when we might not have the players to fill in. If he goes missing for 5 games, we need that position, because it's such a key position where we need that player to be on form each game. So I think that's the most frustrating bit, is the lack of consistency.
Now we'll save the best for last. Bobby and me and Simon might have a fight in a little minute. Paul Digby. Me and Simon, let me just fill you in the history of this a little bit. Me and Simon have often seen differences in this.
Not seen eye to eye, have we?
We've not. So much say that for Christmas, our Christmas special podcast. Well, it was Christmas, wasn't it? It wasn't my birthday.
Yeah,
No, it's Christmas.
And we did a bit of a secret Santa between us, and Mr. Mercer here got me a framed picture of Paul Digby, because I rate him very, very highly. From the first minute that I saw him play, he sort of played a sort of defensive midfield role just in front of the back four, and got the nickname from me, the interceptor, and played very well. Then started the season out and out centre mid, and because he'd not really played there a lot before in that position in pre-season with that squad, didn't really hit the ground running, and therefore got a lot of flack from certain fans. And then I've then seen him in reserve games play a more defensive role, centre half, right back, where he seems to have flourished. We've had arguments about it, about his quality.
Arguments.
I would.
It's nearly been full-grown fights, let's be honest.
Nathan's had to
More like handbags, to be honest.
Yeah, handbags at times. But obviously you saw him as a youngster, and fill us in on his background, because you said to us earlier he started off as a centre midfielder, and then some fairly harsh injuries sort of held back his development.
Yeah, it was going to be the next big thing. He was an ex-England youth international. He made his debut at Derby away, which I played in. I think he was just turned 17 at the time. Had everything. He was 6'2", 2 feet. He could get around the pitch, get forward, defend. And you thought this was going to be a real top player. Then he virtually missed 2 seasons of injuries. Had 2 hip operations. And unfortunately for him, he was not the same when he came back. His mobility seemed to have gone a little bit, and he's had to adjust his game, I think, because of that, and try and find a position that best suits him. He's got great ability, a fantastic guy, another great kid, wants to learn. Probably the most eager lad I've seen in the last 10 years that wants to learn. To the fact that you could tell him anything as a senior pro and he'd go and do it the next day. So he was very naive when he was young. So you could have told him to do something he shouldn't do, and he'd have gone and done it.
Anyone ever try it?
I don't think so. He took things to the extreme, though.
That's a yes.
He used to take things to the extreme on his professionalism because he'd had them injuries. I hope he goes on and reaches potential, because he is a really good kid. I don't know where his best position is now, though.
I mean, I think we'd argue, wouldn't we? I mean, I'd like to see him back in front of the back four and play the interceptor role, but I would also be happy to see him either at right back or at centre half. I think he prefers a more centre.
I think what style of play you're going to adapt would have suited him. Paul won't be no good in a long ball team. I was surprised when Steve Evans bought him. He's not Steve Evans kind of player. If you play through the midfield and get him on the ball, he'll be a playmaker. So again, it's how you use him. If I was his manager, I'd play him sitting in midfield, getting on the ball and making your team play.
Yeah, there's a job going at the One Course Stadium, Bobby, if you want it. As long as you make him captain, you're in. I'm only joking.
I'm playing at centre back.
Yeah, famous just to annoy you. It's all good fun. But it's nice to get an insight into that and to sort of see what they were. Because I think from our point of view, we look at players and we judge them on how they perform, but we don't know the backstory sometimes. And you know, I think when a player like Jacob Mellis, for example, has been at that high level and had that sort of high pay packet, a lot of the time they might be sort of reserved to sort of play on that a little bit and that have that naiveness, and that sticks with them. And then when you've got a player of your Danny Roses and your Paul Digby's who are been hard working from a kid and want to see that shine through, Nate, that must be That must tick boxes and give you a little bit more confidence going into next season, knowing we've got players in there who have got the right attitude to try and succeed rather than the wrong one.
Yeah, like so especially the like say of Danny Rose and Paul Digby, it's quite refreshing to hear, because a lot of times you look out on the pitch and you question what they're really here for. Are they here just for the money, or are they here to put on a shirt, do their job each week and put in a shift? So and I think as a football, especially as a Mansfield Town supporter, and we're very passionate supporters, and so all we want to see is every player go out there and give all they can for the shirt. And I think a lot of years we haven't had that. So if you've got those sort of characters in the dressing room, they're the ones you want to keep hold of, because like I said about that the season when we went down, we still remember that as a positive season, as in the reasons that we fought for every game, and that's why they got a standing ovation after after most matches. So that's all you really want, and hopefully that passion could take us through with the addition of quality, and with the good setup we've now got, with a new training ground coming in, with the Radfords in charge, and we need that passion to then for everything else to fit into place, I think.
Yeah, we certainly do, and we'll talk a little bit more about our ambitions for the season forthcoming. We'll talk about a man who's played under the current manager, knows his style, perhaps didn't see eye to eye with him in terms of being in team selection, but it's good to have that open, honest opinion. But before we go down that route, we always like to sort of have an insight into the playing career and talk about funny stories and sort of memories, that sort of things. Now, if you type Bobby Hassell into YouTube, do you know what comes up, Bob?
No idea.
Goalkeeping masterclass.
Right.
Bobby Hassell, England's #1. We mentioned it in the quiz earlier on. You were playing for Barnsley.
Yeah.
Anwick gets sent off. What happens? Why do you end up going in goal? Talk us through it from your perspective.
Well, the rationale behind that decision, I'd literally only been on 5 minutes from being on the bench. John Stones, I think it was his debut, he scored in that game. So I came on at right back, John got cramp. Goalkeeper got sent off, so I just took the shirt off him. I played in goal as a kid quite a lot. Played a lot of cricket. I was wicket keeper. So
talk about that in a minute as well.
Yeah, so I was confident and go in, and I didn't think it'd turn out quite like it did. It was a strange one, because the day before I'd obviously been told I wasn't wanted by the manager.
Which was
Keith Hill,
yeah.
And we'd gone back to his Rochdale, which was his team, and suppose he had to eat humble pie at the end, because basically what I'd done in goal won us the game on the day. And we had to go back in the dressing room, and he had to say well done, which I don't think he liked, did he?
Was Flitcroft his assistant at that point?
Yeah, he was,
yeah. Obviously, the goalkeeping thing, wasn't it a clean sheet though, was it? You faced a penalty, didn't you?
No, I let 2 penalties in, both same corner, but I don't know, say 4 or 5 shots, some decent ones as well.
Yeah, I think there was one reaction save, sort of diving header straight at you, sort of.
Yeah, it was last minute of the game, yeah. It looked offside, but it actually wasn't. They just stuck. He gambled when it was there. He's headed it. I've gambled where it's going, and it just stuck straight in my hands.
Were you tempted to knock on the manager's door after that and says, right, well, he's suspended for at least 1 game. Took me now playing net. Were you tempted?
Well, just tempted to knock on his door and ask him when I'm going to play, more than anything, whatever position.
Fantastic. I imagine. Have you ever watched that performance back, the goalkeeping performance?
I've seen that clip on YouTube. By various people sending it. I think David Priest, who was at the club at the time, he's a journalist now. He tweeted it a bit ago and tagged us in it. He tagged someone else in it, so I'm on Twitter. So I have seen it, yeah.
Yeah. You ever look back and think, actually, that was a decent save. That I should have maybe gone down that route.
Have a bit of banter with the young keepers when they're making. I've said, just come and watch this, and this is how I need you to be. So have a bit of banter with them on that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And obviously, you played at the Stags with numerous keepers. I can't list them all, but Bobby Mims, Ian Bowling, Kev Pilkington.
Yeah. Some really good top keepers.
Whose style did you go, or was it just, I'm in now, I'm just going to chuck myself around?
Yeah, that was it basically, yeah, no style.
Sounds like Kevin Pilkington's style, that.
I'm going to say,
yeah. Let's be honest.
Who was the best shot stopper that you played with then at Stags? There was a number.
Ian Bowling was a good goalkeeper. I can remember being a really good goalkeeper. Distribution wasn't great, but his actual handling and commanding of the box and shot stopping was very good.
A bit like Kev Pilkington.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, it's the modern day, they want them to be able to distribute with their feet now. That's one thing that's spoken messages in our academies, to concentrate more on the way to pass the ball, and I'd rather them stop the ball going in the net still. So
that's the job, isn't it, fundamentally, at the end of the day. It always frustrates me as a fan when you see a keeper try and do about 4 step overs and try and be a world beater. You're a goalkeeper, just get it in your hands and get rid and start playing again. You're the last line of defence at the end of the day, so you know it's for you there. Now, you mentioned cricket in that. Another YouTube clip of you, if you look hard enough you will find it, is a testimonial charity cricket game.
Yes.
Can you remember it?
I can, yeah. I was 50 something not out. They were kind to me though on the day. I've got a good relationship with director of cricket there, Martin Moxon, who's a big Barnsley fan, who's kind enough to bring over the strong enough team as he could that were available. It was a good day. With some internationals playing, it was good.
It wasn't a half bad performance from you, because that half century included, if I'm right in thinking, 3 consecutive sixes.
Yes. When I was 14, 15, I could have chose either sport. Obviously chose football. So perhaps could have had a career in cricket long term. But obviously I chose football, so I've always been decent at cricket. So it's my second favourite sport.
You like to keep your hand in every now and again?
Yeah, I've not played since that. I just don't get the time. I'd love to be able to play in the summer. My friends in Barnsley try and get me to play, but I'm just so busy. I find it hard to get there.
I reckon it'd be quite funny, maybe a resurgence back into sport, Bobby Hassell back in as number 2 batsman.
Yeah. No, I'll try. I will try and get there one day.
Who knows? It'd be fantastic. But I guess things like that. I mean, a lot of people say about you that you obviously do a lot with the community and doing fundraisers and things like that. Why is it fundamental for you to get involved with that? Because let's be honest with this. We, as a group of people on this podcast, we all have a list of people we want to get in. You were on that list and very high up that list as well. But there are a few people on the list who we've sort of sent messages to, or either been ignored, or it's come back as we want to feel, things like that. Why is it important for you to give something back to the community?
I think it's common courtesy. It's a human being. And there's not many times you're going to be a role model for people as such. And I think you have a duty as certainly a professional sportsman who's in the entertainment world as such, and having a positive effect on people's lives, to not actually go into the communities and set that example. Because a lot of certainly young lads don't listen so much nowadays to the parents. They listen to the people they adore on telly, and sport is part of that. Mansfield Town players, Barnsley players, when I'm there, you play a big part in the community, and they'll probably listen more to you than they probably will other people. So I think you have a duty as a human being to actually give something back.
Well, we certainly thank you very much for your time. We know you've travelled over here tonight as well. It's been a really insightful thing. Still a couple more topics to talk about. If you have enjoyed the show so far this evening, all the links for the donations are in the description, so make sure you click on that. We're raising money for the Alzheimer's Society, who do fantastic work with people who live with dementia. More on that coming very, very soon indeed, including that end of season night where we'll reunite the champions of 2012-13. You stayed at Barnsley for 10 years, had your testimonial against the Stags, of course. Ever any opportunities to come back to Mansfield? Has any crop up?
No, not to come back. There was a time when Adam Murray was here, when I'd probably coming into that 10th year, there may have been a chance. But the old chairman, who's obviously just died, Patrick Crine, asked me to stay that last year, which I honoured his wish to get the testimonial. I perhaps wouldn't have stayed now if I'd known how many games I would have played that year. Flicker was the manager. Obviously didn't want me there really, if I'm being totally honest, that last year, but was forced to keep me on. Didn't use me enough, and ultimately released a lot of good senior players that year, and it's the reason I think he didn't do well and got sacked, and we got relegated because of that.
I mean, we're fearful of that at the minute, because as we record this, we're recording this on the Wednesday just after the season is finished, an 8th place finish just outside the playoffs. Retain list not yet out. We are hoping it will be for tomorrow, which you'll have already seen because this is going out in 2 weeks. It's weird. But the point that I'm trying to make is, obviously we're a little bit apprehensive at the minute about what direction Flitcroft might go in.
Yeah.
Talk to us, in your honest opinion, about how he is as a manager and your experiences under him.
I think he's a good manager. Certainly has initial impact. If you look at his history, he did at Barnsley when he first took over at Barnsley. Yeah, he didn't play me. We didn't have a great relationship when I was a player there. I've actually a much better relationship with him now, which happens when you're a player. You want to play. He's a manager. See someone come to his end of his career that the fans are wanting to be the manager. There's a bit of paranoia there, perception. It's probably false as well. So I understood all that. But he had a great effect on the team when he took over. We were dead and buried at Barnsley that year when Keith left, Keith Hill, and he did a miraculous job to keep us up. I think he made some fundamental errors the next year, releasing some senior championship players and going down the lower league route and bringing in players which didn't backfire really. He should have probably stayed looking back with some senior players. But he always has an initial impact. I know it's strange. I expect him to come here, if I'm honest. I thought it was a great appointment, and I still do. When he took over, I thought he'd get Mansfield over the line because he's been good. He did it at Bury. He did a good job. He was at Swindon before he left. He was beating around the playoffs. For some reason, it's not worked. Hopefully, he'll do the opposite to what he's done. He usually starts really well and fades. So hopefully, he'll start poorly now and get them going.
Yeah, and keep getting us up. I mean, it'd be fantastic to see us up there. I mean,
he's an infectious character. He's a motivator, and he's 5, 6, 7 years into being a manager now. So I'd have learnt a lot from mistakes. Certainly, how he dealt with senior pros like myself. Not just him, Keith Hill. I don't think are great at dealing with senior pros. To my experience, they may have got much better now because you desperately need senior pros in your dressing room and good pros, which I think he'll have learned a lot from his time at Barnsley, and he's been successful since in getting teams promoted.
How much do you know about his assistant Ben Futcher?
I know Futcher really well. I've done a few coaching batches with him. He's a funny guy, very busy. I call him very busy. When he go coaching, he was the one that did all the talking. You'd want him to shut up really because he wanted to get away. So he's very inquisitive, wanting to learn, which is a good sign for a coach. Played against him obviously in my younger days. Seems a really good guy. Don't know him greatly, only from interaction at coaching courses. So yeah, I'm hoping he gets his own team in next year because he won't want to play the way that's the old manager played. Certainly won't. He preached the way to play when he was at Barnsley, which was a passing way, going through midfield and instead of long ball. So I'm sure he'll be given a fund to get the team promoted, and I'm sure he knows he's got to start well next season.
Yeah, I think he'll be feeling the pressure after not having a home win and only having 2 wins, one of which being against the bottom of the league in Chesterfield. Chesterfield, that's the one thing I didn't ask you in the first part. I know you spent a majority of that season injured, the 2002-2003 season.
Yeah.
Talking specifically about the 2-1 win at Saltergate, the spitting incident between Rhys Day and Shane Bradley.
Yeah.
How much did you sort of get to know about that incident? And
it was a strange one because they were good friends then. I found that very strange. They were good friends. And then coming off, he was very frustrated with the way he left Mansfield. And I was in the stand actually seeing him spit. It was a strange incident.
Did you expect that from him?
Yeah, he was a very strange guy. He could do anything on his day. He was a lovely guy, but at the same time he could just do some silly things. He had a real bad gambling problem when he was at Mansfield. It was. I had a night out with him once, and I ended up back at his house, and his parents drove up from Southampton on the night. They must have rang him while I was there, saying he was going to do something silly. I remember back, and they ended up just on the door. But he was fast asleep in bed. So he had a lot of problems back then, to be fair, that fans don't see.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of players, isn't it? I think you see sort of the way they act on the pitch and don't sort of see the backstory to that. But is there any truth in the rumour that Rhys Day wasn't entirely innocent?
Rhys was never innocent. Very clever player, very clever player in terms of winding the opposition up, which again is missing today. It's good gamesmanship to put your opposition off, and he was very good at that. Great guy, Rhys. I remember when he broke his jaw at Bristol away. very early on, and he carried on all through the game. You could hear him screaming every time he headed the ball. You wouldn't get that now. They'd be straight off. They'd be straight off.
That big reason why you wanted to come back for his testimonial?
Absolutely, yeah. That generation, really good characters, really good guys. You do anything, they do anything for you, you do anything for them. It's an unselfish generation, where it's a very selfish generation now.
I know we went off a little bit on a tangent. I'm sorry for that. That's me rambling. But I just want to go back to Flitcroft for a second. You two were listening to that, Nathan and Simon, and listening to what Bobby had to say. Very open, very honest, but also very courteous as well, which I think a lot of former footballers wouldn't be. We're bound to get some more on here which are a little bit more down there. If I got stuck in a lift with him, I'd beat 7 chains out of him, that sort of thing. But Nate, listening to that, we've spoken a lot on the podcast about what we've seen on the pitch and our worries and reservations, but everything that seems to come from the players who work under him all seems to be pointing in one direction, that he's a very good tactical manager, he's a very good trainer, good coaching sessions, good intensity, that sort of thing. What do you feel listening to a player who, alright, might not have had the best times as a player under him in terms of not getting game time, that sort of thing, but has still been open and honest enough to talk positively about him as a coach?
To be honest, I've actually grown a bit in belief, and I'll put my hands up now, because I know, especially towards the end of the podcast, towards the end of the season, I pretty much said I wouldn't want him at the end of the season, but he came out after the 1-1 draw with Crawley, and I think what he said was quite powerful, and if what he said is true, obviously he has come into a difficult dressing room, so it was obviously a difficult job to take. He's obviously under a lot of pressure where we were, and things haven't gone his way, but he was very convincing of what he said and what he wanted to put in the team. And I think as a Mansfield Town supporter, we've grown the youth team for a while, and now we keep saying it's time to start building that relationship. And I also feel that if he can get across his style of play and his values, and if he can galvanise them, that's...
I knew you were going to say that.
I had to say it.
Did he use the word galvanise when he was Barnsley manager?
Is he still using that?
He's still using that.
Yeah.
Is he still using that?
They'd use that, and special human beings was his other one.
We've not had that one.
But no, I've bought into what he's saying, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he does do, and I'm ready to give him a chance now. So he has won me over, and my belief in him is growing. So let's hope it continues.
Sorry?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Nathan's saying, to be honest. I mean, the other week we all wanted him out, but after Saturday's interview, it seems he knows what he needs to do to get us up there, and if it rubs off on the players and the players that he gets in want to play for him, then it's going to be a good season for us. So let's just kind of stick with him for a little bit, see what he does.
It's interesting as well, a current, well, it may not be a current player at the club, but the time this goes out, because I don't know about the retain list, but when I went to the shirt sponsored meeting, I don't know what it's called, but the shirt sponsored
luncheon thing.
That's what it was, yeah. Obviously we had the opportunity to speak to a few players then, and there's one player a little bit similar to Bobby really, where senior pro, and he's not really been in favour, and he's not been included in any game.
We'll give you a clue. He's got a fantastic beard.
It's Paul Anderson, yeah. Let's just say I'll put it out there. So he's very much echoing what Bobby said, where he's not being in favour, and he really loved to be, but he's not been in favour. But he has also said, in the same breath, that he thinks he's the man for the job. He thinks he's a good manager to take Mansfield forward. So although he's frustrated in his own personal situation, he does still think that he'll be a good manager. So I think that echoes exactly what Bobby's just been saying.
Fingers crossed for a good season next season. That's almost all we've got time for, but Bobby, whilst we've still got you here, obviously, still very much involved at Oakwell. And I think when you compare the two clubs, I think a Barnsley is what Mansfield sort of aspire to be, a bit bigger crowds, but similar towns, similar styles. Is that why perhaps you managed to stay at Oakwell for so long, because it was so similar to a Mansfield?
Yeah, it was an easy transition for me. Similar towns, as I say, similar people, similar 200,000 around the borough, similar to Mansfield. Similar size, as I said. Mansfield, if they wanted to get in the Championship, should copy the model of what Barnsley have done all these years. There's a great infrastructure at Barnsley. I see Mansfield starting to do it now with creating their own training ground and doing various things around the stadium. Aligning now the academy with the first team, which is what we do. So it'd be great to see them copy the likes of Barnsley, because again I think Mansfield should be a League One club, established League One club with the ambition to get into the Championship. I think Barnsley have played the most games in the second division than any other club in the country. So if a town like Barnsley can do it, I don't understand why Mansfield can't do that. They've got a good backing out, they've got money, they've good owners who's willing to put his money in there. And as I said, he's building an infrastructure. Hopefully he'll get the right people in that can take that forward.
Fingers crossed that does happen. Bobby, it's been fantastic having you on here tonight. Just finally, from yourself, best memory of Mansfield Town FC. What do you look back on when we sort of messaged you and said, can you come on this podcast? What did you sort of look back on and think, do you know what, that's one of my highlights at Mansfield?
Getting promoted out on that pitch. You know, I know they said there was about 8,000 there that day, but there was a lot more than that, which again, Keith Haslam special really. You know, there was hundreds and hundreds just stood up. I mean, it won't be allowed nowadays. Just stood around the pitch all game because they had nowhere to sit.
With a white tape.
Yeah, red and white tape.
You know, it was a great year. I had my first child. Obviously met my wife. That year we got promoted. So that year was a special moment for me. My best memory definitely. But similar to Barnsley, I got promoted with a lot of kids that had come through the academy at Barnsley, local lads, and very similar to here. We'd all come through together. There's no better special memory than when you get promoted, but with your youth team players. It's a really special memory. Nobody can take away from you.
And what about the opposite side of that? Is it the way in which you left?
The way in which I left, yeah. It was similar to Barnsley. I didn't leave there on the right way. So yeah, the way I left Mansfield was a big regret not being able to say bye. You want to, as a player, leave knowing you're leaving, walking off, a bit like a lot of players do. They know they're going to leave. You last 5 minutes, you walk off to a standing ovation, and you can say bye properly after the game.
Yeah, certainly. So, Bobby, it's been fantastic having you on here tonight. Thank you very much for coming, Nathan and Simon. Some insightful stories there tonight, Nathan. Certainly, it's had my eyes open to a few things.
Yeah, and it was just really, really nice just to hear you talk about that promotion season, because I think if I go back to when I started watching the Stags, it was probably a year before where I could start, which I can remember. And that season, I remember I must have been age 7 or so. I remember being on the pitch on my dad's.
What were you, Simon?
But I remember being on that pitch, and I think ever since that day, I've I've absolutely loved it. It's been a massive part of my life since all of us, and that being one of your greatest memories is certainly one of mine. I think that'll stay with me, and I'd probably say all of our supporters as well for the rest of our lives as well. So it's just really great to hear that.
Now that's for you, Nathan, as well. Obviously, Chris Greenacre was a big part of that that side.
Oh, sorry,
Chris Greenacre.
Do you remember him?
Can I say it again? Can I just plug it in there about the England shirt and all that? Or
No, you can't. You do that every week. I'm not allowed it.
Damn it.
Do you think we can get him on the phone and one day and tell him that Nathan?
Of course you can. I'm sure you.
Let him know next time you talk to him.
Yeah.
Simon, what about you? Obviously some fantastic stories tonight.
Yeah. It's good to see from like last week, from Ian Bowling to like kind of the next generation on, because Ian saw Bobby coming through the youth team and things like that, and then like we've got the next generation of stories sort of thing. So yeah, it's really been good.
Fantastic. And if you've enjoyed it at home, all the links to the description are in the description for the Alzheimer's Society if you want to donate to our cause. More details coming very, very soon of that special night at the end of this podcast series, the start of next season, when we reunite the champions of 2012-13, all in the name of the Alzheimer's Society. My name's Craig Priest. Thanks very much to Chris behind the camera, who's been doing all the audio and everything to that tonight. Thanks very much to Nathan, to Simon, And to guide Doc Hudson down there as well. This has been a trip down memory lane, and it's only fitting that the final word and the final message to the Stakes fans on his memories of Mansfield Town FC go to this evening's guest, Bobby Hassell.
No, thank you for having me. You know, I wish all the fans in the club all the best for the future. Hopefully they'll get promoted, and as I said earlier, be an established League One club. I will say, get behind the manager. I think they've got the right manager in. You know, he's a great motivator. I'm sure he'll build a promotion-winning team next year, a team that the club and the town will be proud of.